Hey guys, it's Mr. Roxy coming at you live from Palm Beach. It is Wednesday. It is March the 9th and it's about 7 p.m. And I thought I would put together a quick video on some oil geography. Where does oil come from? Who are the top 5 producers? But then as a special bonus at the end of this video, I am going to tell you exactly which stocks you could possibly look at buying in terms of adding some energy to your energy portfolio. How do I know this? Well, I inadvertently stumbled across the most prolific, fantastic, brilliant traders on the market, and I know exactly what they bought because someone else did the homework for me, and I'm going to share it with you. I think it'd be awesome because many people have asked me, now that the energy stocks are on the rise, what is it that I should buy? So let's first do a little bit of a quick overview of geography and look at these countries. The darker the shading, the more oil they have. Now, when you look at this map here, if you're able to name all the countries on the map, you probably deserve a prize. But anyway, you can see that many countries, with the exception of Europe and many African countries, actually have a lot of oil in terms of proven oil reserves. As I said, the darker the shading, the more oil they have. So you can see the wealthiest traders of oil in terms of proven oil reserves would be like Saudi Arabia, and some of the countries in close proximity to them, like Iran and Iraq and Canada. And then you go into the sort of orange shading there. But let's go through these and go through this information in a few minutes, and then I'm going to tell you where your money should go if you want to make a lot of money. We're just going to follow the money, right? Why oil? It generates revenue. You can always follow the money. Any political decision that's made, almost anything that is decided on a global scale, including conflicts, generally come back to money, and oil generates revenue, a lot of revenue. Global production of oil and other petroleum liquids averaged approximately 95.5 million barrels per day in 2021. We're close to 100 million per day, but it's not enough because there's just not enough supply to meet the demand and the ever-growing demand, especially post-pandemic. The 3 producing countries, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Russia, produce nearly half, 43% of the world's petroleum liquids production. And if you add another 2, Canada and China, then you have a top 5 that account for 54, more than half of the global production of liquid petroleums. Key takeaways from this is that despite all the focus and all the noise that you hear about renewable energy, oil production continues to play a critical role in the global economy, and it's going to be with us for decades, maybe even a century or more before we figure out a different or another way to do it. The United States became the world's top petroleum liquids producer in 2013 and the world's top crude producer in 2018. Remember when President Trump touted the fact that we are now energy independent in the United States? Well, that happened in 2018, 2 years before he was unseated as a populist US president by an even more popular president, Joe Biden. Russia's production has been held back by Western sanctions. Western sanctions hold back Russian production. Yeah, is that also related to the critical role, the follow the money story? Anyway, Russia's clout in the global oil market increased a little bit after it joined OPEC to create OPEC Plus, along with Saudi Arabia and a few key other exporters. China's production meets just over a third of its consumption. That's not a good place to be. When you produce only a third or thereabouts of what you're consuming, you are in a horrible place when energy is trading at the prices that it currently trades at. A quick look at the top 5. The United States is the top petroleum liquids producer in the world. In 2020, the US produced approximately 18.6 million barrels per day. So currently it's up at about 20, which is about 20% of the global production. Internationally, because 20 million out of 100 million. It's been the top producer since 2013, thanks to surging natural gas liquids production from shale deposits. It didn't surpass Russia and Saudi Arabia in crude oil production until 2018, which was Trump's year of we are now energy independent. Much increased US crude oil production is attributable to hydraulic fracturing or fracking. We know that by now. And it became a net exporter. In other words, its exports exceeded its imports for the first time, at least since 1949, by 2020. But then, returned to being a net importer in 2021. That might be political, but I'm not going to make a political comment, so I'll just move to Saudi Arabia, which contributes approximately 10.8 million barrels per day. So about half of the US production, a little bit more than half, which represents about 11% of global petroleum liquids production. However, Saudi Arabia holds 15% of global proven oil reserves and is the largest crude exporter on a per capita basis. Of course, Saudi Arabia is also one of the founding members of OPEC and the only organization of petroleum exporting countries to make the top 5. According to the CIA World Factbook, well, that might be fake news or not. I don't know. You decide. The petroleum sector accounts for approximately 42% of Saudi Arabia's GDP, 87% of its budget, and 90% of its export earnings. In other words, the country's entire economy is pretty much totally dependent on oil. Saudi Arabia's major oil fields, I'm not going to do that any justice because I don't speak Arabian, and I'm probably just going to mess up those words horribly. Russia dropped to 3rd place after it was a leader in 2010. It produces 10.5. Now Saudi Arabia produces 10.8. This was 2020, so this might be different. It might have changed. Maybe Russia is now number 2, and Saudi Arabia is actually number 3. But I think with all the sanctions, Russia might do well just to hold on to the number 3 position. The industry privatized after the Soviet Union collapsed, but later the state forced consolidation and asserted more control over the sector. Its top oil and gas producers include Gazprom, Rosneft, and Lukoil. I have a position in Lukoil. I'd like to add more to it at $6 a share, but I can't because of sanctions. And $6 seems to me like a pretty good deal and a nice bargain, but I can't buy it because of sanctions. A couple of months ago, Lukoil was trading at well over $100 a share. So if I could pick some up at $6, I would be happy, but I can't because of sanctions. However, some other people are buying Lukoil, including JP Morgan, maybe some of your favorite US congressmen and women. Western sanctions imposed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2014. Does that sound familiar? Western sanctions imposed after Russia's invasion of the Ukraine in 2014, because we're talking here about Crimea, barred Russian energy companies from assessing US capital markets and its shale drilling technologies. However, it did get a bit of extra standing when it joined OPEC Plus. In 2017, the 14 OPEC members added 10 non-OPEC oil exporters, and one of them was Russia, to form OPEC Plus. OPEC sets export quotas for members and plays an influential role in global markets. Coming in at number 4 is Canada, the 4th spot amongst the world's petroleum liquid producers. Now, if you look at petroleum liquids producers overall, it's 5.3 million, which is about 6% of global output. If you look at crude oil and condensate specifically, it's about 4.2 million in 2020, which could, according to the EIA, grow to 6.9 million by 2050. So here's the EIA effectively almost admitting that regardless of all the money and time and energy we spend on developing renewable energy, Canada's crude oil and condensate production of around 4 million is going to grow to almost 7 million by 2050. That's their prediction. In other words, we spend all this time and effort on renewables, and here the EIA is telling you that Canada's production might get close to doubling over the next 25 years or so. Canada's main sources of oil production, obviously, the oil sands of Alberta. Most people know about those. Coming in at number 5, one more, and then I'm going to let you in on the greatest stock tips of a lifetime. China produced almost 5 million barrels of petroleum liquids in 2020, which is 5% of global production. China bypassed the United States to become the world's largest oil importer in 2017. That is a significant change. Its consumption of approximately 14.5 million barrels per day made it the world's 2nd largest global consumer after the United States. This is a horrible place to be in, especially with oil and gas prices where they are right now. If you are consuming 2-3 times more than what you are producing, you are in a world of hurt. So never mind the real estate collapse of the Chinese market or the manufacturing decline or the stagnant economy or whatever, China is hurting, and badly. Increased investment in enhanced oil recovery, EOR. We hear a lot about this from Occidental Petroleum, for example, including, for example, polymer and stream flooding and water injection helps to offset some of the production declines. So they're using some modern and fairly current technology in order to offset some of those production declines, but they are in for a world of hurt. Let's look quickly at demand and supply. So the EIA estimates the current world demand close to 100 million barrels, because this was 2021 and we're now in 2022, almost 100 million barrels per day. That's the demand, right, guys? So keep that in mind, 100 million. When the price of oil rises, usually it decreases demand. Now, unfortunately, in terms of where we are today from a macro point of view, as we sort of move away and out of the pandemic, demand is increasing as there's sort of more return to normalcy to a degree. So usually when the price goes up, demand decreases, but in this particular instance, demand just keeps rising. Some emerging market economies offer fuel subsidies or price control for consumer benefits. This is not a great idea because they do tend to spur demand, but also cause the country's oil producers to sell at a loss. Not always, but sometimes. Petrobras is an example of that, because the Brazilian government interference in fuel subsidies and price controls impact the company's performance quite significantly, which obviously impacts their return on investment for investors. So I just talked about demand at about 100 million barrels per day. This is supply on the supply side currently, and this is stagnant. We see this even with Occidental, right? Every time they report, they basically say we produced approximately 1.1 million barrels per day, which is quite impressive if you think about it. Just one company, Occidental, producing more than 1% of the world's demand on a daily basis. On the supply side, 94 million, it's kind of stagnant there, it's stuck in 2020, but we're still producing about 95 million barrels per day, but we're consuming about 100 million barrels per day. Demand exceeds supply, causing a price spike. And that's one of the reasons, in fact, that might be the primary reason why the price is so extraordinarily high right now. Discovery of new reserves in 2017 was the lowest since the 1940s. The amount of reserves found has fallen every year since 2014 as budgets for oil exploration has been cut following the fall of oil prices. That was then. Now the prices are going up, and still budgets for oil exploration are either cut or stagnant because companies are not investing in oil exploration because government is restricting them, including in the United States, where they will no longer issue permits on federal lands. So there's a lot of reasons why the companies are not investing in exploration, in addition to the fact that most of the oil companies are making a lot of money, but they're doing budget repair and paying off their debt, which is a smart thing to do. And by the way, guys, most OPEC countries do not have the ability to pump out more oil. So even if Joe Biden calls them and says to OPEC, please pump more oil, they just do not have the ability to do that, even if they wanted to. The irony behind my comment there is that Joe Biden is not putting a call into the likes of Chevron, Exxon, Occidental, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66, etc. No. He's calling OPEC. Why on earth he would do that? Nobody knows. Because by supporting OPEC, you are in effect buying Russian oil, Iranian oil, Venezuelan oil. It's like, really, guys, is that the best you can come up with? But anyway, on a lighter note, I said at the beginning of the video, I'm going to let you in on the greatest secret ever. And I stumbled upon this somewhat inadvertently, but it's really, really good news. People have been asking me, can I get into energy? Is it too late to buy or whatever? Guys, look at this. You want to see who the smartest traders are on the planet, right? This little gray block here that says SPY, that's the index, the S&P 500. So when you look at the actual members of Congress that beat SPY in 2021, now if you look at SPY, you'll see that the performance for last year was pretty good. The S&P 500 came in at about positive 28% or something for the year. But look at that's nothing for these guys. I mean, there's some familiar names on, you might not be familiar with all these people, but you certainly would have heard of like Nancy Pelosi or whatever. The Mitch McConnell, right? These guys easily outperform the index. How do they do it? So Unusual Whales, this guy's on Twitter here, so unusual_whales. Numerous politicians bought energy plays before their run-ups and general discussions on banning Russian oil. If it sounds like insider trading and it walks like insider trading, it probably is insider trading, but not when you're a member of Congress. No. Then you are free to use whatever information you have for financial benefit or gain. Guys, you can actually look at what these people do and just emulate their trading. And you could probably become super rich regardless of what your salary is, because many of them have wealth that exceeds their annual income 100, 200, 300-fold. Many of these congressmen and women are on committees who are privy to private information, which includes defense and energy committees. And many of them had not ever purchased any energy plays before. What should I buy, Mr. Oxy? Just wait, I'm going to show you in a minute. Then he adds, let's get this straight. An NFL player loses their $11 million salary for betting $1,500 on a game. I don't follow American football, so I don't know who this is. I could probably Google it and find out, but I didn't. Meanwhile, politicians are making multiple trades on private information, expecting a rally. What do they buy, Mr. Oxy? Well, let's follow the crooked money. Prior to the Russian invasion of the Ukraine and sanctions, members of Congress purchased these defense and energy stocks, especially energy, but some defense like Lockheed Martin, Chevron, Next Era Energy, XLE. That's a pretty good buy because it's a broad-based ETF, an exchange-traded fund that you can buy into that gives you a nice balanced portfolio of energy stocks. It's not a bad one that I have a little bit of XLE. Energy Transfer, I've talked about that one often. ENLC, which is Enlink Midstream LLC. Plains All America Pipeline, PAA. PPL Corp, PPL. And Phillips 66, PSX. What energy stock should I buy, Mr. Oxy? I don't have a clue, man. I've told you before, I can't advise you, but let's see what the smart people do. These guys are very astute and very knowledgeable traders. Unusual Whales also created a Nancy Pelosi ETF so that we can track her trades. And by the way, the 1, 2, 3, 4 up here, just to be balanced, because if you say I'm talking about Nancy Pelosi because she's a Democrat, well, the 1, 2, 3, 4 just above are Marjorie Taylor Greene, Robert Whitman, Mark Green, Virginia Fox. They're all Republicans. So I'm not picking on anyone. I'm just showing you the smart people. If you want to follow the smart money, if you want to follow the crooked money, these are things that you could possibly look at buying if you want to add to your existing positions or open a new position. So where are we now? Crude oil, a little bit earlier today when I looked at the crude oil futures, this is the April 2022 futures, trading at about $110. And it's down 12%, or it was down 12% when I took this little snapshot at 2:53, so at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Remember when we thought Oxy was printing money when the futures were heading above 80? Well, now we kind of feel sad when it pulls back 11% and it's at 109. Are you kidding me? Just a few days ago on March the 8th, the April futures were trading at $123. Anyway, guys, if you like my videos, please subscribe. But in the meantime, I look forward to your comments, and I'm sure there's going to be at least one person who's going to be able to name all the countries on this map. I certainly cannot do that. I would get lost for sure, sort of across the Central and West African states and the Middle Eastern states I can do. But anyway, if you know which these countries are and you can identify them all on the map, then all strength to you. I can identify most of them, but not all of them. Anyway, that's kind of a wrap, right? So a little bit of background in terms of where oil comes from and who's producing the most, and then what you can buy if you want to add some energy to your portfolio based on the phenomenal success achieved by our United States congressmen and women. On that note, guys, this is Mr. Oxy saying thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.